I have never read anything like this before, which is both a really good thing and a really tough thing for you, because I really don't know how to explain this book to anybody. So
neither do I. I mean, to talk about it is hard for me too.
The best I came up with is there's a girl with a low IQ, but who's very clever at the same time, and the other narrator is a tortoise who's very wise, but doesn't know much of the world because he's a tortoise. And the plot seems to revolve around what may or may not be an immortal mouse.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. I like that, actually.
But that doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, when people ask me what it's about, I usually say, well, it's about a tortoise, because that's the easiest, fastest thing to say. And that usually gives people usually look a little bit worried when I say that. My neighbor had the best response. He just looked at me for a long time, and then he said, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. And that was it. Nothing wrong with that. So yeah, it is. I find it hard to talk about what it's, the plot. It's hard to summarize the plot, I find.
Let's talk about the two narrators. Maybe we'll start there. and they have a strange relationship connection.
Yes. Well, the tortoise it lives in an apartment that Audrey, the other narrator, was a tenant in that apartment. So yeah, they are connected in that way. But when I started writing the book, the tortoise was not a narrator, and in fact, the tortoise wasn't even really a character. Then she became a character, and then I started writing from her point of view, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, so I kept going with her as a narrator. Audrey has, as you pointed out, she's odd. She has some blind spots. There are certain things she won't. There are certain mysteries in the novel that not only does she fail to solve, but she fails to even identify them as mysteries. So she's very blind spotted in that way. And I think what I wanted, although I didn't, this is all in hindsight because I didn't plan it out, was some other perspective on her, almost like a third-person narrator who could see her from the outside and fill in some of the gaps that she won't address herself. But I didn't want a sort of third-person, omniscient, godlike, eye in the sky narrator. I wanted, I guess, the reverse. I mean, you can't get more opposite from God than the tortoise, really on the ground, with blind spots of her own, but she's able to tell parts of Audrey's story that Audrey can't tell herself. And I really enjoyed that. But then, because she's a tortoise, of course, she misreads the world too. They both misread, but in combination, I think you can sort of arrive at the story through both of them. But
the other thing is, the tortoise may very well be immortal, because he doesn't even, the tortoise is a she, Winifred or Iris, depending on who's owning him, her. Has been around for at least 100 years, maybe 200. Really not kind of very sure. She's
yeah. Yes, that fascinated me. The idea of having, and I did have a tortoise myself, and I didn't know how old he was. It was I assumed it was a he. It might not have been. But that idea of with the human-pet relationship, usually the human has to witness the pet's death. This would be the reverse, where the pet lives much longer than the human and has to sort of cope with new owners, new tenants coming to the apartment and having to sort of adjust to just the way a human would have to adjust to getting a new pet after the old one had passed on. So
and she misses some of her past owners.
Yes, well, she's very attached to Audrey, and so she really misses Audrey, but she also misses the Panasonic salesman who preceded them, and she misses Cliff too, who is Audrey's boyfriend. So she does become.
Doesn't think much of the Shakespearean actor.
No.
The title, I really should have Googled. It comes from what?
It comes from The Tempest. It's not an important line. It's Prospero, who has sort of he's the sort of ruler of this island that he was banished to. It's his way of summoning Caliban, who is his slave. He says, "Come, thou tortoise." In other words, get over here, you slowpoke. What I've done in the novel is I have Winifred, the tortoise, acting as a bookmark for Chuck's somewhat dodgy edition of Shakespeare entitled Lowering the Bard. And she's acting as a bookmark, and she happens to look down and see that line. And she can read. Plausibility, I'm not too concerned about. She can read, and so she's just, oh, there's a tortoise in Shakespeare. And this changes her whole sort of perspective on herself, and she feels very important after she discovers that. Plus, the word tortoise is footnoted, or there's an end note. A 60 comes after it, which she reads as an exponent, which means the tortoise is a tortoise to the power of 60, like a huge, powerful tortoise, and she's thrilled about that. So it's not an important line in the play, but it's one that I couldn't resist having her see. And it seems to sort of describe not just Winifred, but Audrey a little bit too, that Audrey is a bit of a tortoise. And there's many of the other characters are saying, "Come on, Audrey, think, wake up." So it felt like the right title for the book.
The book is Come, Thou Tortoise. I've been speaking with the first-time novelist Jessica Grant, and Come, Thou Tortoise is published by Knopf Canada.